One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay, I don't know about you, but I love a good behind the scenes story. Like, it is just something that lights me up and I get so excited about it. And I feel like it is partially due to the fact that I don't live like a super exciting, dramatic life. So I feel like whenever I can get into the celebrity gossip, I see all that stuff and I'm like, ooh, it's so dramatic. It's because nothing like that ever really happens in my life. But I will say I'm not a fan of the Housewives type shows or any of those. I don't know. Are we on the same page here? I feel like I'm going down a weird tangent, but I promise I am making a point here. I love all of the things behind the scenes. I think that is why I'm in love with The Office Ladies. If you didn't know this about me, that is my favorite podcast. I love The Office Ladies podcast because I'm such a fan of The Office. And this podcast is all about Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey giving us the behind the scenes of what was happening the whole time they were recording. And man, they've had the best nuggets of wisdom and really cool tidbits that you just would not know. They've had writers on the show, they've had their prop masters, they've had camera people, they've had just so many big time actors. They've had John Krasinski, Rainn Wilson. Okay, so this is just turning into me and my obsession with The Office. But I share all that to say, today, I am sharing with you some behind the scenes details of my digital course whenever I first started that you won't hear anywhere else because I've never shared the stories that I'm going to share here today. And if you've ever heard that saying where you don't share from a fresh wound, right? You want to tell people whenever you have a scar. Does that make sense, right? You don't want to share a lot of stories when you're right in the thick of it. So let's say you launch something and it totally flopped. You don't necessarily want to tell people that happened the way that it did when it happens. But now that it's been some time later and I have had successes, I feel it's time. I feel it is finally time for me to share the top 10 mistakes that I did when I first created my digital course back in November 2018. That's not when I created it. That's when I launched it for the first time. And there's going to be some cringe-worthy moments. So buckle up because we're going to get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, so if you have been keeping up with things in real time, then you know the entire month of August, we are talking about podcast monetization and what that looks like and how you can actually use your podcast content to segue into a digital product like a digital course. So that's really what we've been concentrating on all of this month. And if you're listening to this way later in the future, then go back and listen to the episodes that we've previously talked about because they're awesome. It's a lot of stories, like not to toot my own horn, right? But there's a lot of things that I talked about in this month's episode that I don't typically share in other places because creating courses isn't my thing. It's something that is part of my business and I have experience in it. And oh my gosh, I cannot wait to share with you the lessons learned that I'm going to share with you here today. But I don't typically talk about this. This isn't my expertise. It's just something that I wanted to bring up to show you what is possible that I have been able to do with my podcast content. And if you haven't listened to the other episodes, I had only been podcasting for about 4 months before I created my very first digital course, which we're going to talk about today. But before we get there, all of the mistakes that I'm going to tell you about could have been avoided had I been a little bit more prepared. So today's episode, I really wanted to highlight Amy Porterfield's new resource. She has the Ultimate Course Creation Starter Kit. And this is a PDF guide that you can go and download right now. It's at crystalprofit.com/starter guide. And in this guide, she's going to help you walk through 3 key decisions you have to make to get your digital course up and running. The first one is deciding on your course topic. The next one is figuring out what you want to name your course. And the third one is deciding what are you going to stop doing once your digital course is up and running and it's successful. So again, go grab Amy Porterfield's Ultimate Course Creation Starter Guide, our starter kit, which is a guide. All these words. It's at crystalprofit.com/starter kit. So go grab that. There's also going to be a link in the show notes for this episode today, but I wanted to make sure that you knew about this because all the mistakes that I'm going to share with you, probably not all of them, I would say at least 99% of them could have been avoided had I had Amy's direction, and I didn't. So I had started following Amy Porterfield probably around this time. Like I knew who she was, but I wasn't like entrenched in her world. I don't think I was listening to her podcast. If I was, I had just like kind of listened to her once or twice. Like her name was not somebody that I regularly thought about because I was just getting started. I didn't know who the pros were and who the experts were other than one specific blogger I had been following for a long time. And I had taken her digital course. I believe I signed up for it in August of 2018. It was a little overwhelming. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I will say that the best thing that I learned from taking that course about blogging was how to set up a website. But in hindsight, knowing now, like I didn't know all this stuff then, blogging has a very different perspective than a podcaster or someone who's wanting to create an online course business. So I'm saying that to justify some of the mistakes that happened, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So today I'm going to share with you 10 ways that I totally messed up when I first started my digital course. And like I said, there are 10. So we are going to get going. I'm going to share all the stats with you that I'm sharing with you today. I can't even say that right. All the stats I'm sharing with you today can be found in the show notes of this episode. So if you're just want to listen to the stories, awesome. But if you really want to go back and say, oh my gosh, Crystal, really? Like you screwed up that much? Yes, I will show you because I want you to learn from my lessons. Okay. So crystalprofit.com/episode 180 is where you're going to find all of the messy details. Okay. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's dive right in because we got a lot to cover. So mistake number 1, that's what we'll call these. We'll call these mistakes because the first thing that I did with my course is I priced it way too low. Way too low. Can you guess? Like I want you to guess. Obviously, I'm not going to hear what you are saying, but I want you to say out loud, what do you guess was the price of my course? Did you guess $38? Because that is how much it was. And I got to say, I went to school for marketing and I thought I was playing some kind of like mind games with my audience, which was very few and far between. I didn't have a big audience. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I was like, okay, I'm going to put on this Canva graphic that it's $98, and then I'm going to put a slash through it, and I'm going to say it's actually $38, so it's $60 off the original price, because I'll just be honest, I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought, well, $38, anybody would be happy to pay that. But then I realized people did not see it as valuable because it was just $38, and they're like, why would I take a course that's $38 whenever I could take another one from someone who is actually established? I wasn't even established as anything. I was just like, I'm just going to throw this out there. We're going to see what happens. And I'm going to give you the stats in a second about what kind of sales I made, how many students, and all the things. But it was $38. So I priced it way too low. If you're creating a digital course, I would love to see you at least start your pricing at or around $100. I really do, because once people have the skin in the game to invest their hard-earned money, they are going to show up in a better way. Because I did have some sales, but only a few, actually one person, and I'm just going to say it was my mom, finished it. She actually paid me, okay? I didn't give it to, like, she wants to make that clear. Anytime we tell the story, she's like, you tell people I paid for it and you didn't just give it to me. I was like, yeah, you paid $38 for it. So anyway, we're moving on. That was mistake number 1. I priced it way too low. Mistake number 2 is I didn't really know who I wanted to serve. I really didn't. And we've talked about this before in the 4 reasons why you won't make any money podcasting. We talked about if you're not talking to the right audience, then you don't really have the ability to make money. Well, I didn't know who I was trying to talk to. I had like this broad general audience, right? I didn't have like an ideal listener persona. I didn't have any of that. I was just like people that want a podcast. And I kind of threw that out there, and I definitely had people interested that wanted to podcast, but they were not the type of people like I think of my ideal listener today. Like my ideal listener today is mostly like everybody listening to this podcast right now is going to fall under 1 or 2 categories. You either have an online business, right? And you're trying to add a podcast into the mix as your marketing strategy, or 2, you are wanting to create an online business and you know that a podcast is the type of content that you want to create. So either way, in both of those scenarios, you are moving towards having an online business or having a business of some sorts. Well, I got a bunch of people that were interested in creating a true crime or a hobby podcast. And I didn't know how to talk to those people because they just wanted to know how to get more downloads. Like, honestly, I feel like they didn't even really care about their audience at all. It was just about the numbers. Like, how can I trick the algorithm into giving me all these downloads and then just make it look like they're the people that would hire a bot to go and listen to their podcast over and over and over again to get more downloads just to make it appear. And I am not about that. That's sleazy, slimy practices, and I don't stand for it whatsoever. So I wasn't attracting the right audience because I didn't know who I wanted to serve. So that was mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is, oh my gosh, I tried way too many things at once. I tried so many things at one time, and I wasn't taking it step by step in like a systematic strategy approach. But to be honest, this is just, I know this about myself. I'm more of a baptism by fire kind of girl. Like, just throw me in, coach. I'll figure it out. It's how I've always been. I've always been this way. I feel like I was like this with parenting, I'll figure it out. I feel like I was this way with cooking and fitness and other things that I've taken on in my life. I'm just like, I will figure it out. So with my course, when I launched it, I was also trying to grow my social media and establish an email list. We're going to talk about my email list in a second because if you're just getting started, you're absolutely going to relate to the size of my email list. And you might even laugh because it's really small. So I tried that. I'm trying to think of all the other things. I tried webinars. Yeah, no, shouldn't do that. I was still trying to figure out how to create sales pages and write copy and talk to people in a way that didn't sound like it was just reading a textbook. There were just way too many things that I was trying at one time. So to piggyback off of this mistake is I don't want you to try so many things all at once. Like, if you are just now starting your podcast, you don't need to create a digital course right away. You don't. I told you I was podcasting for about 4 months before I ever created and launched my course. So, I mean, I'm not saying you got to wait years to podcast and then create something, but I would say one thing at a time. Like, establish your podcast, establish yourself as the expert in what you're doing, start growing your email list, maybe get a following on social media, and then launch to an audience that knows who you are, what you're all about, and why you can add value to their life. Me, I just kind of threw a bunch of stuff together and said, I'm going to throw this out there. It's going to be so successful.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
And it wasn't. So, okay, we're going to get to that in a second. So that was number 3. I tried way too many things at once. Number 4, I felt bad selling. I was so just not confident in what I was saying in my emails. I felt like I was unsure. Like, you should buy from me, I guess, if you have the money and you want to do this and there's, you don't want to go learn from these other people. I didn't actually say that, but this is what I was thinking in my head. And I just was not confident. I wasn't confident in my skills as a teacher, as a leader, and I didn't show up the way that I show up today because I am confident in my skills today. I feel very proud of all the things that I've accomplished with my own podcast personally, but also with just how far I've come from this person who didn't know how to write emails and didn't even know where to start with a sales page or show up on live camera, like all the things. I have learned so much, but I just felt bad in the beginning. And the reason why is because, again, going back to number two, actually, I didn't know who I was speaking to. So you definitely get a confidence boost once you figure out who you're talking to and how you can add value to them. So don't feel bad about your marketing. You will fall in love with your marketing once you know how you could help people because you have identified what their problem is, how you can help them solve it, and who it is that you're actually trying to help. Those just become, oh my gosh, marketing. I'm in love with marketing now. Like I have no problems telling people that my course is right for them or that my membership is right for them or they should go listen to my podcast because it could help them or go check out my YouTube channel because if they're a visual person and they want to see all the examples and that's where they need to go. I have no problem saying that now because I have confidence. And maybe confidence just comes over time, but at the beginning, I just felt bad. I did. And I don't even know, maybe that was like a psychological thing for me. As I went to school for marketing, I took all these professional selling classes, and I did not learn how to speak directly to another individual. I learned skills and strategies that had to do selling from business to business. And so seeking out people through email or social media, that wasn't taught. So I didn't know how to do that. And it was just like thrown in the deep waters. There's great white sharks swimming all around me. And I thought I was drowning because I didn't know what I was doing. But thankfully, I was thrown a life raft. And here we are today, a few years later, and I got it figured out. Okay, so we're moving on. Mistake number 5. Let's just go back through 1 through 4 again. So number 1 is I priced too low. Number 2, I didn't know who I really wanted to serve. Number 3, I tried way too many things at once. Number 4, I felt bad for selling. Oh, that's just so bad. And you really stumble over your words when you don't have that confidence in what you're doing and knowing who it's for. So make sure you take time to really understand how your product, your service, your podcast, whatever it is, make sure you take the time to understand the value that you can add to someone else. Okay, so mistake number 5, I did not 100% believe in myself because I was the only person who had gotten results with my system. Now, this could absolutely be true for you if you are just listening to this and you're like, oh, that's me. I started my podcast because I'm an expert in fill in the blank, but I'm the only person that has gotten results doing it the way that I do. An example would be if you're like a health and fitness coach, like you just got certified and you're like, okay, I want to build my business up, but I'm the only one who's gotten results. Maybe you lost 50 or 100 pounds doing what you know how to do, but you haven't gotten those results for someone else. That's where I was. I was trying to sell a product, but I didn't have testimonials. I didn't have anything other than, oh yeah, I have a podcast. You can go check it out on Apple. That was it. No, that was literally the only proof that I had. And I don't even know that I talked about my podcast. Oh, this is so bad. I'm thinking back to my very first original sales page. I don't even know that I really mentioned all the things about my podcast journey. I was probably just like, hey guys, here's this course. buy it. Good luck. That was about it. I'm not even joking. I think it was that bad. I think it was really that bad. Oh my gosh. So I want you to feel confident in yourself when you go to sell something, because you've either gotten yourself results, which if you have, please, Lord, figure out how to talk about your own results better than I did, because I just flopped on this 100%. Or get testimonials of people that you have worked with. And here is like a great example, tip, life hack, whatever you want to call it, but work for other people for free for a while. Y'all have heard me talk about Jackie. I actually have another podcaster that I helped, Caitlin. She was kind of my first client. I say that with air quotes because she didn't actually pay me. We just went back and forth and I was helping her, and I was like, hey, I would love to have a testimonial for your helping you with your podcast, even though we didn't have this established client coach relationship. She was like, yeah, for sure. You helped me, get started, get going. So she gave me this fantastic testimonial, which was awesome. So shout out to Caitlin from the Happy Home Birth podcast. She is just doing incredible things with her show, but I hadn't gotten to that point yet. This was actually pre-launching or even talking to Caitlin. I had already launched the course. And so that story came later. So if you don't 100% have confidence in yourself and you were the only person that's gotten results, you got to figure out a way to talk about your own story and take the time to figure that out and do this better than I did. Learn from my mistakes, please. Okay. Number 6, I was overwhelmed with way too many mentors in my head. So if you do this, then you are just like me. We are so much alike. If you are trying to solve a problem and you get on the old Google and you start searching and you find 5 different blog articles that you think look pretty credible, right? They have the featured in Forbes logo on their website, or they have something that you think, okay, they probably know what they're doing. There was 7 of those people in my head, and I was so extremely confused. I was so confused because I would look at one and I'd say, oh yeah, all right, sweet. They said this, I'm absolutely on the right track. But then I would go to this other tab, right? If you're anything like me and you have 50 tabs in your Chrome browser open at once. Yeah, I know. It's probably not a good thing, but I do it. It's how I operate. And I would switch in between tabs and I would look at another expert and they would say, oh no, you absolutely do it this way. And it was the total opposite of what the other expert had just said, the one that I had just gotten on board with. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And then this other person is saying, no, you got to do it this way. But then I listened to this other podcast and they said to do it that way. And then this YouTube video had another fantastic idea. So there's these contrasting shiny objects just flying all around me. And I was so overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, I felt like I was just throwing darts blindfolded on which idea I was going to run with, which option I was going to choose. And maybe at the end of the day, that works for some people. Obviously, it worked for me just to get started, but it's not a great strategy. I do not recommend doing that moving forward with your business or with your podcast or however you want to apply these lessons today. But oh my gosh, try to stick with, and I've talked about mentors in the previous episodes. I'm going to link to it in here in the show notes. So crystalprofit.com/episode 180. I actually talked about my mentor, Amy Porterfield, and I do have a few mentors, and the difference between a mentor and someone that you admire, which is what these other people were, they had built successful businesses, but I didn't necessarily want a business just like theirs. One of them was a very successful blogger who had grown a huge following, and she had just so much revenue in her business from her blog, but she had a model that I just didn't agree with. So at the end of the day, all of her success didn't translate because I didn't want her business. She had a physical product she was selling. I have no desire to have inventory of a physical product ever in my life if I can get away with it. She had a totally different model. So I encourage you, go check out the episode about mentors and only have one mentor in your head. 1 to 2, 3 at the very maximum. But honestly, I truly believe that 1 to 2 mentors that are pretty aligned with what they believe in and how they teach and the values that they hold can help you just not feel so overwhelmed and just give you some relief. That was really what I was looking for, was just a step-by-step, do A, do B, do C, and then do D, and then run with it and try new things and then come back and do it again, but in this order and this way. That was the kind of mentor I was looking for, and that's not what I had coming at me. I had 1,000 ideas. None of them made sense to me, and I felt very frantic doing the whole thing. I just remember feeling very anxious the whole time I was doing it because I didn't know what I was doing because everything was so all over the place. Okay, so moving on. That was mistake number 6. Mistake number 7 is I used way too many templates instead of just trusting my own voice. So like I said, I had a blogging course that I had taken, and within this course, they had included lots of email swipe copy, which if you don't know what swipe copy is, that means it's just a template. These are email templates that say, okay, just copy all of this, and we're going to highlight where it says name or product or story, and they put like these brackets in there of how you should write things out. And I remember I was doing that. I literally copied and pasted everything that they had. And then I did like a control find to replace the word name or to, put my product, my course name in there, the price, those kinds of things. And that was really about it. I didn't take the time to write out everything in my own voice because at that moment, I hadn't found my voice. I really hadn't. Like when it comes to creating emails and writing to my ideal listener, and I think that was the problem, is I didn't have an ideal listener. I had created a very general audience, and I didn't know how to speak to that general audience because it was just so vastly different. Like from each person that opened the email, I imagine every single one of them reading it in a different tone in their head, right? Or not understanding if I made a joke. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, well, if I say something about Friends, everybody will think that's so funny. But then I got nervous because I was like, wait, but what if they don't like Friends? Or what if they don't know about The Office? Or what if this or what if that? And that's really only in hindsight can I realize this, but that's how I knew I was not concentrating on a very specific person. I was trying to reach so many people. So if you are just starting out on your journey, whether it's writing your show notes, writing emails to your audience, I highly recommend you doing all this in your own voice instead of using swipe copy and templates. It just makes it so much more personal when you can just write the way that you speak. Okay? And I feel like we need to go deeper into that, but I'm going to put a pin in here for now because we're going to talk about that in a future episode. I think that that's very important to learn how to write, especially the more that you speak on your podcast, because you can do this with transcripts and whole other ways. Okay, I'm just like going on a tangent now, but we are just going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it because we're going to move on to mistake number 8. And this is one that I still tend to do today. And it's like I say it through gritted teeth because if you know me, you know. But I have tried to bootstrap literally everything in my business. I've tried to bootstrap it. Everything's like held together with a piece of used Scotch tape. Okay. It's not even a fresh piece of tape. It is used Scotch tape that I got from an old Christmas wrapping paper or something. I don't even know, guys. Like it's so ridiculous. But whenever I was bootstrapping everything in the beginning, everything took 10 times longer. 10 times longer. And I don't do this as much anymore. I have invested in some very specific tools. I'm actually going to be sharing those with you pretty soon. Like if I were to start all over again, what tools would I invest in? So that's a podcast episode coming up in the next few weeks. But it took me 10 times longer because I did not want to pay for tools that could help me. I kept saying, I don't need to pay $35 for this. I can just do it on my own. I don't need to pay to have this software make this happen. I can do it on my own. I don't need to pay for this or for that. I can do it on my own. And I don't know if it's just the stubborn gene of me wanting to have control over it, or if it was just me being the cheapest person alive, which I can absolutely be both of those people. But at the end of the day, looking back, I realized I could have gotten so much further faster had I invested in the right tools. So I want you to keep that in mind. It's not about just throwing money at tools, because even still today, I don't use a lot of tools that the experts tell me to. I use the ones that will move the needle the most, the fastest in my business, and that's it. I don't go above and beyond just because I'm making money and I can throw money at things. No. You will never see me doing that. I'm way too cheap with my money to do that. But I will say, I wish I would have taken more time to invest in myself and in my business from the very beginning. Okay, so we're moving right along. Mistake number 9. I tried a Facebook ad when I had no idea what I was doing. Okay, and maybe there are some of you out there saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad she said that because I've done this too. Yeah, the whole boost this post probably could work for people that know what they're doing. I had zero idea. I didn't even know that there were different levels. It's like I went into Ads Manager and I was like a bull in a china shop and I started clicking things around. And of course, the only thing that I knew was how much money I wanted to spend. I was like, okay, I'm only going to spend, I think it was like $50 or maybe it was even $100. But that money was gone so fast with no results. And please don't waste money on Facebook ads unless you know what you're doing. Okay, unless you can hire someone to do this or take a training, do some sort of like in-depth research on how ads actually work. I don't want you touching Facebook ads with a 10-foot pole. Please do not, because that can turn into so much money gone. And I would much rather see you do this in a really smart way. I would rather see you invest in anything else in your business before you invest in paid advertising. Because this is going back to, again, we keep circling back to, if you don't know who you're talking to, Facebook ads won't do anything for you. Okay? So this was one of the biggest mistakes that I made that now I can see where I could have done way better, way better. But you don't know what you don't know. But that was one of my mistakes. So that was number 9. Number 10 was I immediately wanted to move on to something else because I didn't make thousands of dollars on my first launch. So I want you to hear me, and this is the reason why I wanted to end on this specific one, is because I did not make a ton of money with my first course launch. And I was ready to shut it away in a closet, pretend like it never happened, and move on to something else. But I don't want you to do that. And that's actually not what I did either. It's what I wanted to do. Oh, trust me. It is absolutely what I wanted to do. I wanted to just say, okay, I'm just going to figure something else out. Like, this was a terrible idea. I shouldn't have gone this route. But luckily, so I launched this in November 2018. Luckily, in January, February of 2019 is when I really got introduced to Amy Porterfield, and I got enrolled with her doing B School, which is Marie Forleo's program. And I got so many questions answered, so much clarity, but It wasn't until I had heard Amy talk about she created one course and launched it over and over and over again that I got it sunk in my head. Oh, okay, this was just version 1.0. Because before then, I had just thought, oh, people launch a course one time, they make thousands of dollars, and then that's it. Maybe they'll do it again, somewhere in the future. But I hadn't even thought about making it better. I just thought this is as good as it's going to be. And I didn't love everything that I did because I had no idea what I was doing. First of all, I really didn't. I was piecing a lot of information together, and it just didn't turn out the way that I had hoped it would. And so that's really my story. And what I want to just really hit home today is you can do amazing things with the digital course, but you have to have the right framework and the right plan in place. And if anything, like listening to this today, you can hear I'm thinking of key emotional words. I was overwhelmed. I was anxious. I was not confident. And I was just struggling all around because I wanted everything to work so bad. It's like I was trying to wish it to happen. Did you ever do that as a kid? Where you cross your fingers, you cross your toes, and you're like, if I wish hard enough, my digital course will be successful. Friend, that is not what happens, okay? You got to put the hard work in. You got to know what you're doing, and you have to know what to focus on. So I told you I would give you some numbers. I'm going to run down real fast and tell you the top 10 mistakes again. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and then we're going to wrap it up. So number one is I priced my course way too low. Remember, it was only $38. I want to see you price your course a lot higher than that so people have a perceived value in investing in the course. Number two, I didn't really know who I was talking to and who I wanted to serve. Number three, I tried way too many things at once. Please don't do this. If you're just getting started with your podcast, focus on that for a little bit. Focus on that for a quarter, right? For 3 months, focus on your podcast, and then let's explore a digital course. Number four, I felt bad selling. I just did not have the confidence. I want you to feel 100% confident in what you are selling. Number five, I didn't believe in myself because I was the only one who had gotten results with my system. So focus on crafting your story and how you got your results. Figure out exactly what you did to make it happen, or even better, focus on getting someone else results so they can give you an incredible testimony. Number six, I was overwhelmed with way too many mentors in my head. Have 1 to 2 mentors that are your go-to people, right? They are the ones inside your head say, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. But only 1 to 2 people, 3 at the max. Number seven, I use templates instead of creating and trusting my own voice. Try to steer clear of things that are just swipe copy and templates. Try to really find your own voice in your writing and in your podcast. Number 8, I tried to bootstrap everything. You guys, I'm all about being cheap, being frugal, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, if you have the money to invest in tools and services to take you further faster, do it. It's absolutely worth it to do it. Number 9, don't try Facebook ads unless you know what you're doing. I had no idea what I was doing and I lost some money. So I want to see you investing only when you know what you're doing, or you can hire someone who knows what they're doing. And number 10, I tried to move on too quickly because I feel like what I had done was a failure. I had expected to make thousands of dollars and have people banging down the door to purchase my digital product, and it didn't happen. And I was ashamed, and I wanted to run away and hide and never look at this thing that I had created again because it was something that just needed to be swept under the rug and forgot about, right? Those are all harsh words, but it's really how I felt. So here are the hard facts. Here are the numbers, because I'm sure by this point you're like, well, Crystal, how bad was this? We really just want to know. So I initially sold my course for $38. I had 6 students sign up. 6. One of them was my mother. So 5 students plus my mom bought this course. I ended up making a gross amount of $228, but I didn't bring home that much. It was like around $180 that I actually took home. So there's that. And how many people were on my email list? I had less than 100. So I had imported around 80 people onto my list. So even when I go back, and I've scrubbed my list since then, and most of those people are gone. So I'm actually looking at my ConvertKit right now, and it says I had 42 people on my list whenever it launched. So I could have had more at that time, but they've since been scrubbed and they're gone. 42 people. Okay. So now imagine what everything would look like had I known what I know today about creating something of value, about talking to the right audience, about using my own voice, about how to feel confident in my own skin and what I'm selling and getting other people results. Like, oh my gosh, everything would be so dramatically different had I known then what I know now. Which is why I've already said this and I'm going to say it again. I really want you to go grab the Ultimate Course Creation Kit, the starter kit that Amy Porterfield created, because she is one of my mentors. And everything that I've learned about course creation and selling online, doing marketing has really come from her. Like, she is that voice in my head whenever it's like, okay, should I send this email this way? Should I write this post? Should I keep sending more emails? Should I do more podcast episodes? How should I do this? How should I word this? She's in my head. And she is telling me, these are the steps that you should take, or this is the next right move. This is the thing that you should try, because I listen to her very intentionally, because she's gotten success. She has achieved a level of success in her business that I hope to one day. So I'm going to encourage you, go grab that PDF download. It is so helpful. I wish I would have had it before I made all of these mistakes that we talked about here today. But again, you can go to crystalprofit.com/episode 180 to go grab the link to the starter kit, or go check out all the things that we talked about. I'm going to list all of these out very plainly so you do not make these mistakes as well. But that's all I have for you today. If this is your first time tuning in, wow, what a way to get introduced to all the things that have happened in my online business since 2018, which is really when I got up and running. And I love sharing these behind the scenes. I'd love to hear what you think about it. So I encourage you to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating and a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Take a screenshot and share it on social media. I would love for you to tag me, and let's start a conversation about what it would look like for you to add a digital course to your business. But that's all I have for you today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous, or If you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message, and I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of fan mail shout outs.